Welcome back to Hearth and Wisdom. Sit by the fire, let the warmth embrace you, and allow yourself to be carried away by another tale of timeless wisdom. There was once a man named Elias who lived in a small coastal village tucked between cliffs and the sea. He was a quiet soul, a widower, known not for his words but for the precision with which he lived. Everything in his home had its place. His books were alphabetized. His shoes never faced opposite directions. His garden, the envy of the village, bloomed in perfect symmetry. But more than anything, Elias treasured his wooden spoon. It wasn't grand or beautiful. In fact, it was chipped and stained from decades of use. But it had been a gift from his wife Anna on their first anniversary, hand-carved by her own hands. She had laughed as she handed it to him, saying, "Because even love needs a little stirring." And every time Elias cooked, he used that spoon. After she passed, the spoon became his ritual. Every soup, every stew, every morning porridge, stirred with the same steady rhythm. It was as if keeping the spoon in motion kept a piece of her alive. One stormy evening, lightning cracked over the ocean. Wind howled through the village like a wild beast. Elias, as always, prepared his dinner. He reached for the spoon, and it slipped. He tried to catch it, but it struck the edge of the counter and snapped. The spoon, his last tangible connection to Anna, was broken. Elias stood frozen. A flood of grief, sharper than anything he had felt in years, surged through him. He sat at the table, staring at the two pieces, unable to eat. That night, he didn't sleep, nor the next. Neighbors noticed he stopped tending to his garden. He declined visitors. The light that usually shone from his cottage at night remained dark. It wasn't the spoon they worried about. It was what it represented. The collapse of his order, his control. One morning, a young girl named Mira from the village came to visit. She was no more than 10, but wise beyond her years. She knocked. No answer. She entered anyway. Elias sat in his chair, staring at the broken spoon on the table. She walked in silently and picked up the pieces. "Why don't you glue it?" she asked. Elias shook his head. "It's not the same." She looked at him, then at the garden through the window, now overgrown and wild. "You know," she said softly, "things can still be useful, even when they're not perfect anymore." He didn't reply, but that night Elias lay in bed, her words echoing in his mind. The next morning he picked up the broken spoon, and instead of throwing it away or fixing it, he did something else. He carved it into 2 new spoons, one small for stirring tea, one wide for the garden soil. Every time he used them, it reminded him, broken things can take on new life if we let go of what they used to be. Over time, Elias returned to the garden. He opened his door again. He shared soup with neighbors. His home became warm once more. But something had changed in him. He no longer arranged the books so perfectly. He didn't care if the shoes didn't align. His plants began to grow in wilder shapes. He even let vines climb the windows. He had learned something few ever do. We spend so much of our lives trying to control the world around us, thinking that if we just keep things in order, we'll be safe from pain. But life isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be lived. The spoon had broken, but Elias had finally begun to heal, and from then on, whenever he stirred his tea or dug into the soil, he smiled, not because the spoon was whole again, but because he no longer had to be.